It's that time of year, once again, where us enthusiasts share our list of top 25 roller coasters. And this will actually be my first year because in the year of 2023, I have acquired 32 new credits, almost doubling my count, and bringing up to a total of 68. So I feel like I have enough to start this annual top 25 video.
Kraken.
Starting out at number 25, we have Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. If you saw my overrated coasters video, then you know that I don't find this coaster to be as good as other people do. But it's still a good coaster mixing positive G's with a little bit of airtime, though the Cobra roll is very rattly. Number 24 is Skyrocket at Kennywood. Even though this coaster can get a lot of hate sometimes, I found it to be really good. The launch is kinda weak, but the top hat and drop off the mid-course especially are packed with ejector airtime. And so is that weirdly profiled 0G roll. You are just forcefully thrown out of your seat during that. Number 23 is Thunderbolt, also at Kennywood. This coaster was definitely better than I was expecting. I hear a lot about the middle part with the intense laterals, but no one talked about how you get thrown into the buzz bar on every single drop. And if you're in the front, there's this bump into the first lift hill that forcefully ejects you out of your seat. Number 22 is Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando. This coaster combines almost everything you would want in a B&M floorless coaster. Great positive G's and a snappy 0G roll. It's the only floorless coaster I've ridden, but from what I can tell with the others, this one easily has a better second half with a loop and a trench instead of a second corkscrew. At number 21, we have SheiKra at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This was the first dive coaster in America, and kind of the world's first real dive coaster. Even though the layout has more to it than Oblivion, it's still very simple. A drop into an Immelman somehow giving airtime, then into a helix, and then the usual mid-course drop into turn, then a splashdown. It's definitely a good supporting coaster, and I don't feel like the restraints are any better than the vests like on Val Raven. Number 20 is Great Bear at Hershey Park. This is probably the weirdest invert that B&M has ever made, but that's what's great about it. Instead of having a helix at the end of the ride, it has it right off the lift hill. Then it uses all of its 4 inversions in the best way possible. Yeah, that's right, this coaster only has 4 inversions, but it feels like it has more. Then at the end, there's a very snappy corkscrew right next to Spring Creek to end off a great inverted coaster. Number 19 is Val Raven at Cedar Point. I don't care what anyone says, this is a good coaster. A lot of the same things can be said about this as SheiKra, except Val Raven has some extra elements. The highlight of the entire coaster for me is that 0G roll, which didn't exist on SheiKra. So that's just one of the reasons why I rank it higher. Number 18 is the world's most underrated roller coaster. Do you want to take a guess at what it is? That's right, it's Predator at Six Flags Darien Lake, my home park. After years of people hating on this coaster, the park responded and is now going through a process of a full Titan track retrack from GCI. But for some reason, people still hate on it. Honestly, I have no idea why people hate on it so much. If you ride it in the front, then you will get a mostly smooth and airtime-filled experience with some stronger pops into the Titan track turnarounds. You can also probably expect this coaster to move up even higher next year depending on how much Titan track it gets. For number 17, we have Gemini at Cedar Point. What a classic roller coaster, once the tallest in the world. And even though it gets dwarfed by Top Thrill 2 next door, it still provides a very good ride experience. The airtime and dueling really creates a full package, and it's actually comfortable unlike Magnum, and it has some really good hills if you're in the front or back rows. But at number 16, we have Raptor at Cedar Point. This is a very cool invert, and it's also very intense, and it was the first ever full-size one. The drop is very whippy in the back row, and I always gray out on the ending helix. And after nearly 30 years of operation, it's still perfectly smooth. You don't get any B&M rattle like you do on Gatekeeper in the same park, which soon is going to be 11 years old, and that's way less than 30. Number 15 is Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. And this coaster is definitely better than I was expecting. Even if it looks kinda slow in the POVs, this coaster's no joke. There are parts that are graceful, like the floaty inversions and the entire second half, even if it looks like you're gonna get your face scraped off by rocks. But then you have the elements that try to rip your face off, literally, like the pretzel loop, which forcefully slams you into your seat. This is an amazing coaster that really deserves more hype. From one intense coaster to another, we have Manu at the number 14 spot. And this is probably the most intense coaster I've ever ridden. Yeah, more than Skyrush. After 2 rides in a row, I needed a break for a little bit, so that will tell you just how insane it is. This Batwing completely crushes you into your seat. It's completely insane and just unreal. This coaster on its own is non-stop insanity and graying out, but with that Batwing, it's completely out of control. Number 13, we have the slightly better B&M looper in the same park, Kumba. Now this coaster is really better than I was expecting. It's hidden in the back of the park and never really gets that much of a line. But when I tell you that 0G roll is insane, I mean that there's literally an ejector airtime pop out of the inversion from being snapped 360 degrees so quickly. Then there is even a Raptor style helix at the end, which I heard nothing about before riding it. Number 12 is Stormrunner at Hershey Park. This is probably the most complete accelerator coaster in America, besides Matugani. First, that launch in the front row is something that anyone should experience. 72 miles per hour in 2 seconds, and it's insane. And not to mention, the rest of the layout is really cool too, with the top hat and the amazing, very snappy flying snake dive. Number 11 is Candymonium at Hershey Park. There are roller coasters that feel smooth, but this one just goes completely beyond that. It literally feels like you're riding on a cloud. Not to mention all the sustained airtime moments and the interaction with the Kisses fountain, and that cool little Outer Bank wave turn thing. All of this stuff just really helps it make it as good as it is. Starting out our top 10, we have Icebreaker at SeaWorld Orlando. I don't even get why the park actually tried to call this a family coaster. A coaster filled with fast-paced transitions, many great ejector moments, one of them being one of the strongest I've ever experienced. It's the one right before the top hat after the 4th launch. A beyond vertical spike, and like I said, 4 launches. Does that sound like a family coaster to you? Because it doesn't to me. Number 9 is Mako, also at SeaWorld Orlando. If I could describe this coaster in one word, it would just be airtime. This coaster has so much airtime, even more than Candymonium. And I think it's even a little stronger too. Not to mention, it's very similar to Candymonium because it's so smooth. It's just beyond smooth. And this 5-second floater hill is amazing. Another thing that Mako has that Candymonium doesn't is trains without seatbelts. I was able to get nearly 2 inches of room on Mako, which really improved the ride experience. Up next at number 8 is Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. This is one of those coasters where the more I ride it, the more I like it. Out of all 17 rides I've had on it, my favorites were the night rides I got this past October. They were so fast and filled with a lot of ejector airtime. For most of the layout, it's also pitch black too. But even in the daytime, this coaster is very worthy of this spot. And I just can't stand when people call this average or mid or not good, because I don't know what I see in it that they don't, but it's a lot better than everyone else says. At number 7 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. What happened to this coaster? It used to get so much hype, but now all it ever gets is hate. And no, just stop calling it Millennium Forceless, because that's not true at all. The drop lasts forever and gives crazy airtime in the back row. Then the hills also give great airtime, and the wind in your face, mixed with the positive G's, makes this a completely unforgettable ride experience. Number 6 is Maverick at Cedar Point. Maverick has almost anything you could possibly want in any coaster. Airtime, good launches, crazy pacing, whip, and positive Gs, and even great views. The first half is amazing with the drop and camelback, and then also some really good turns. But the second half is where it gets crazy. You start with a launch up to 70 miles per hour in around 2 seconds, which is similar to Stormrunner. Then the rest of the layout has snappy overbanks and Stengel dives, and I mean snappy Stengel dives. They're very intense. And then the one final ejector hill. Intamin really showed us that size doesn't always matter for a coaster. Number 5 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. The most airtime on any coaster in the entire world. Even though I say it's kind of overrated, it's still a really good coaster. It's just that the new coaster hype hasn't come down for some people yet, but there are some people who have realized that it's not the best in the world anymore. Also, another complaint is the Outer Bank. Weak floater is the only thing you get on that, which kind of made me disappointed. But now that the negative stuff is out of the way, let's look at the positives. It does have a lot of flowjector airtime, and then some strong ejector moments mixed in. And it feels like it's never going to end, which is always good when a coaster is good too. Number 4 is Skyrush at Hershey Park. Ever since I missed out on it in 2021, it's been my top bucket list coaster, and I finally rode it. And it does not disappoint. The restraints can be kind of bad on the final hill, but besides that, they're perfectly fine. And many people talk about the layout, which is amazing, but that drop is completely messed up. No matter what row you're in, but especially the back. It starts with strong ejector, but halfway down there's a kink that completely ejects you right out of your seat. It's the strongest airtime moment I've ever experienced, and it's not really that close. Number 3 is Wildcat's Revenge at Hershey Park. This is a coaster that probably ended up being better than we all expected. So fast-paced with so much airtime. Hershey Park and Intamin knew what they were doing when they made this one. And the turning double down is my favorite part, but all the elements are amazing, especially the wave turn. Well, one that's not amazing is the one turn into the final brake run. Number 2 is Phantom's Revenge. I know that probably not a lot of people agree with me on this one, but Phantom's Revenge is truly world class. This type of airtime with pool noodle restraints is something you can't really get on any other coaster. And even though many people rave about the giant 228-foot drop down the ravine, that's not even close to the best part. If you want to see the best part, you have to look at the final bunny hills in the end. I can get past a few more weaker or filler elements, like the turn after the drop, but when there's airtime moments like this, it's pretty easy to look past it. Number 1 is Iron Gwazi. Wow, what a ride experience. I don't even know where to start with this one. First, there is no debate that this is the world's best roller coaster. That's my favorite element, drop, and inversion on any coaster. The wave turn is unlike any other coaster element out there, and the death roll whips you down as fast as possible. And the sense of speed on this coaster is completely out of control. It feels like the fastest roller coaster I've ever been on when it's not even close. I love this coaster so much, and I really wish it was closer to me than Florida. Those are my top 25 favorite roller coasters, so if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video.